everyone. It's Mrs. Vanstar, your friendly neighborhood English teacher. I am so excited to be here with you today. So here's what's crazy. Right before it started, I realized that this slide said chapter 8 to the end instead of chapter 9. I had to go fix it. All right, so I want to know your opinion. This is the first book of a series, and I want to know, did you think, and of course we're going to discuss it, but do you think it felt complete as a standalone? Like, did you feel that the ending felt wrapped up? Did you have a sense of satisfaction, or did it feel like it left you hanging? You know the rules. There are no rules. The rules are say whatever you want. I don't actually have an opinion on this. So could Ginny 42 always like saying English teacher fail? I sure wish you wouldn't put it in all caps. So so I'm looking at some of your responses as you come in. So there we go. Most of you are saying it didn't. Yeah, there's no cliffhanger. Yeah, most of you felt satisfied. Black Jaguar says no. Luckily, if your answer is no, you can read the rest of them, right? So let me hear your opinion, guys. Let me hear your opinion. 1 through 5. So the last 2 classes, we've given a 1 through 5 on those chapters. Now I don't want just a 1 through 5 on these chapters that you did. I want a 1 through 5 on this book. 1 through 5 on this book. And I'm particularly interested in Simon, because this was not Simon's pick. And this is not Simon's genre. And so for those of you who are not necessarily fantasy fans, I'm really curious what you thought. And as I watch these come in, I'll say, let's see. Simon says his whole list at the library is full of the rest of them. That's awesome. That's so awesome. Oh, and I love it when the decimals come in. I love the decimals. So I'll tell you, for me, I had not read this book, and I don't really consider myself a fantasy fan, like other than Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings and a few others, maybe like A Wrinkle in Time. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I thought the characters were so round and well developed. I thought the character of William Lawrence is one of the great characters. Like, that was great characterization. And I thought the balance of conflict was great, and there were only a couple of times where my believability indicator went but I would give it a 5. I would really like it. All right, so shout out to the Vanstars from last week. So this was one that was interesting. Juliet sent me this. They took this picture of a tree near her house, and Vanstars, what do you think this reminded her of? I'll just let you tell me what you think it is. And Mark C., while you guys are telling me what you think this reminded her of, I will tell you that no, I have not read the rest of the series. I'm going to put it on my TBR, though. I have like 55,000 books on my to-be read list. I'm a little bit behind. So, yes, Mark C., first one to nail it. Sam's tree. Yes, we love a cool tree. I love that. Just another fangirl on the interwebs. We love it. Sam's tree. You guys got it. I know. Doesn't it remind you of that? It was so cool. Mark C. blew our minds last week with, what if His Majesty's dragon and Harry Potter were in the same universe? Oh, he's so amazing. Like, imagine if Harry had a good dragon. I mean, there were dragons in Harry Potter, but they weren't like this. In fact, they were malevolent. Cookie says, what surprised me also is when all the other trained dragons also wanted their harnesses off, even when they'd had them on for years. I thought that was such a good insight, because it was like, once you find out that something's possible, then you really want it. He said, after the first book, read the second one, then the third one, and going to read the fourth one soon. So some of you have already started in on the different books. So I think that's cool. Okay, Jay Sand said, the elusive creature that is Mr. Vanstar, and Mr. Vanstar did not know I was going to do this today, but this is a picture of little baby Mr. Vanstar when he's over there saying, oh, brother. But he was such a cute little baby. Anyway, that's Mr. Vanstar when he was a little baby in Sydney, Australia, where he's from. So there you go. And I love this hashtag, Rankin is not okay. And then it got changed to the AY, but that was fun. Mark C. Oh, when I asked, like, what did this remind you of, this idea of friendship and fighting, and how then you resolve into a friendship? And Mark said the bowling kid, and Kira was like the bear and weasel. And I thought both of these insights were really great. And one of the things I think it tells us is that when we're asked if something reminds us of something, or if something makes us think of something, that there's not one right answer. You know, thinking is not like that. Thinking is not a dichotomy where there's a yes or a no. It's like a reasonable or not reasonable. And both of these were very reasonable. Andrew said, throughout the book, Rankin is shown to be a bad trainer and a bad friend, but that doesn't mean he's a bad person. If you read into his character some more, you'll see what I mean. And Andrew, I know what you mean, and we're going to talk about it today. But I think if you were a bad friend, that does kind of make you a bad person. I want to know, Andrew, if you're here today, I want to know what does make someone a bad person. Because I think Rankin, like, he does this one thing, we'll talk about whether it redeems him or not, but I just feel like I'm not feeling it with him. He's not a great guy. I mean, I'm not saying he's evil, but he's not great. Okay. This was when I asked if it was believable that people wouldn't know that females could be dragon handlers. And this comes up when Harcourt turns out to be a girl, and Will is like, whoa. And she's like, oh yeah, Long Wings will only take female riders. And all that. How did they hide this? Like, where did they think all these girls went? And you guys came up with so many things. So many possibilities, so much reasoning. And I just want to celebrate that. I just want to celebrate that you came up with so many good ideas. All right, just another fangirl on the interweb says, I feel honored that Mrs. Van thinks I'm not too lazy to have a personal dictionary, because, like, pull out your personal dictionary. And I thought that was cute. Marcy, when I asked you guys to do the inured, what you've been inured to and what you will never become inured to, some of these were so funny. This made me curious, actually, Mark C., where you live, that you play hockey, because I know we have Anna who lives in Canada, and usually hockey is most popular like in cold climates. So I'm curious about whether you live in cold climate. And then Linnea and Natasha, actually I don't know if it's Linnea or Linnea. I don't know how I'm saying that, and I should know, right? Inured to the constant rain. I will never become inured to anti-Disney and Marvel. I will never become inured to your science teacher. Mark actually called out his science teacher a couple times last week. He is not a fan. And then Club Fall, I will never become inured to a lack of books. 100% with you. Oh, that you are worthy of being obeyed. I love that. And so it was like, you are worthy of being obeyed. I love that part. And see, here's Mark. Here's Mark dissing on his science teacher again. Christine, I like this idea. I don't think that people can always be worthy because people are imperfect, but there are people who are usually worthy. And Deb, Courtney, Michael, saying that those who demand to be obeyed are often the least worthy of it. Woo, mic drop, right? That was some truth right there. I'm looking to see, living in Ohio. Okay, you know what? I love Ohio. Do you know why I love Ohio? 75% vowels, 100% awesome. I just love Ohio. Columbus is one of my favorite cities. And then I noticed that Cowslips Warren and Watership Down is similar to the bet. Yes, I've mentioned when I've given my shout outs to Watership Down that it is a treatise on government and how people organize themselves and the pros and cons of both, and like utopia and dystopia. And so you are going to see that absolutely in that idea. So are you ready to dive in? Let's see. Okay, remember, this is what I noticed as key events. I'm curious about whether I'm leaving anything out that you feel like is worthy of being mentioned, or if you think any of mine don't really deserve it. So we open up, like we have this ambush where Lily gets injured. Then we have lots of waiting around. And then we have Choiseul's treason, Rankin's semi-redemption. And then we have this victory temporary, and then the divine wind. So that's what I think. So kind of curious about what you guys think. Let me know if you think I let anything out. Everybody wants to know what's up with Mark's science teacher. She's the worst. Could you be more specific? So, Erin says she thinks her mom grew up in Ohio. That's pretty cool. Erin, go ask your mom. Did you grow up in Ohio? Oh, Levitus dying. Dracon Warrior, you're right. You're right. I should have added that in. Why isn't Jane in there? Well, I don't think she's that important. I guess she comes up in the story, but I think it's part of Choiseul's treason. The most important part isn't Jane. But yeah, I mean, okay, several of you are mentioning it. So, okay, Jane, we'll give... Oh, Jane Rowland. Sorry, I was confusing her with her daughter. You know what? I thought about that. And you know what? I think she could have been left out. I'm going to talk about that. You're going to see a slide. I don't think she's that important. I thought I would have edited her out if I'd been the editor. Oh, Temera being a celestial. Well, that goes along with Divine Wind, right? Will you give me credit for that? Cookie, she's so important. Maybe late. I don't know. I'm not buying it. Okay, well, you could try to convince me. Oh, apparently some of you believe that Jane is very, very important. Well, let's launch in and see. I don't talk about her that much. Okay, one of the words that you guys need to understand is larboard. So they say larboard and starboard. So what these are left and right. So larboard is now called port and starboard is still called starboard. But in the book, and even though it looks like it says larboard and starboard, it's pronounced bird. So larboard, starboard, and they're the left and right sides of a ship. So that's what that is. And so when it says larboard, it's not some fancy word. At first I thought, is that like up in the sky? And then I'm like, oh yeah, it's the old word for port. And then it says, Lawrence was shocked to see both these other two dragons suddenly drop. He realized belatedly that it was the reflex. Okay, wait, I'm going to interrupt myself because Jay Sand says that Jane is the amazing replacement of Edith. Yeah, no. No, because Jane, there's no real relationship there. There's no emotional connection. The way she sees him and the purpose of people, I don't know. I don't think Edith was going to be a life partner. Jane is like, yeah. And keep his spirits high. Okay, well, we won't get too deep into that. But it says, he realized belatedly it was a reflex which Celeritas had warned them of so long ago, a reaction to being startled from above. And this was when, again, we get Temeraire able to just not react when people dive at him, and how so many dragons do. It's just this one other thing that shows what a special dragon he is. Okay, so in the book, we get all these different... different breeds of dragons, and every country has their own. Every country has its own dragons and its own naming conventions. And I felt like the French dragons had names that made sense for dragons, right? Like Chevalier, which is a knight, Fleur de Nuit, which is a night flower, Flecha del Fuego, that's actually a Spanish dragon, meaning fire arrow. That makes sense. Pêcheur, a striped fisherman. That's just a reference to like those striped shirts, those Breton shirts that fishermen wear. You've seen them, like dark blue and white, kind of like this, only not exactly. And then a chanson de guerre, war song. What a cool name for a dragon, right? This one was weird. Pot de ciel, sky lice. But I looked it up, and those dragons were like a dime a dozen. So that was kind of interesting. And then we get the Asian dragons, Celestial Imperial, and then we've got the British dragons. So they're very much, and yes, Kiki, you're right. The Fleur de Nuit dragon is sensitive to light. And then somebody said about Jane that she's a temporary replacement for Edith. Not the same, but not meaningless. Yeah, I don't know that she's meaningless, but I also just didn't feel like she was one of the most important things in the story. I only have room for like 6 or 7 there, so I had to pick, Yeah, so I thought this was kind of interesting, and there are way more dragon types in the book and in the story, but these were just a few that I thought showed us that. So of these, what's your favorite breed name? So just pick a name that you think of these is your best. So, thanks, Riley, that you like my shirt. Thank you. Actually put a necklace on for y'all today. So I'm actually what I'm doing today, aside from you guys, is I've been recording training for teachers. So I was doing that this morning and got to record another one this afternoon, right after we're done. So favorite breed name, looking about that, looking to see what you come in on. And then let's launch right into our first friendship alert. Temerare's weariness and sorrow were apparent. He'd been in many actions, no less deadly or dangerous. Oh, wait. Temeraire. English teacher fail. Where's my English teacher fail? It's not Temeraire. It's, oh, maybe it was Temeraire too. No, I'm right. It's not an English teacher fail. But what it is pronoun confusion, which is an English teacher fail. The first part, Temeraire's weariness and sorrow were apparent. But then when we switch to he, that's not Temeraire. That's Will. Will had been in many actions, no less deadly or dangerous, but this one had differed in the crucial respect. When the enemy took aim at his charge, they were threatening not his ship, but his dragon, already the dearest creature to him in the world. I don't know. You don't know you can like that. Yes, I'm writing a bookmark, but no, it's not for kids right now. I will be writing a book for kids, actually, though. It's on the list of to be written. Okay, it would be better if I could think we had all fought so hard and Lily had been hurt for some purpose. And this is Temeraire feeling like, I just wish that this human need, almost. Temeraire has this human need to feel like your contribution, that your sacrifice was not in vain. I'm looking at your names coming in that you like. So, okay, here we are. We kind of already, you guys we got ahead here, but I say the character of Jane Rowland is not necessary. I'm not saying she serves no place, but I'm saying she's not necessary. So I'm curious if you guys can convince me otherwise. Convince me that she had to be in the story in order for the story to move forward. Like, I think you can argue that, like, Choiseul, essential, right? Without his betrayal, it's lost. So we'll see.
Jason said that because she started the second book, apparently.
Oh, she starts the second book. Okay, but we're not talking about the second book. No, we're just talking about this one. We're just talking about this book. So I'll be interested to see. Okay. And then there's this question from Will. Are the dragons, the long-lived ones, always inherited this way? When he finds out that... okay, when she finds out that this is what Kira says, that she's necessary to tell all the weird stuff about aviators, and this is one of them, right? Like that, by the way, Will, you're going to have children, not because you want children, but your dragon needs to be passed down from generation to generation because it's easier for the dragon to get used to your child than a total stranger. And it's like, what? Like, this is so crazy. And that's how it ends. That's so crazy. I'm looking to see some of this. I think the one that's most compelling to me is Kira's answer that she's part of how a story gets told. So yeah, and Anna's saying the same thing. Yeah. Anyway, okay, she didn't have to be there. She's an okay character. I think it's important to consider, why did an author put a character in or why leave him out? All right, so chapter 10. Real place alert here. And Brest is an important French harbor. It's the second most important after Toulon. And this is a staging area for Napoleon, and it becomes important. And it says, when Temeraire's flying in, that the leading British ship fired a handsome salute of 9 guns. So this is what a gun salute looks like. They put it there. Sometimes it's fired with a handheld rifle, but often cannon. And actually, in the United States, we just had Memorial Day on Monday. And on Memorial Day, on all U.S. military installations, including ships at sea, they fire a 21-gun salute in honor of our war dead, which is what we celebrate, or not celebrate, but rather honor on Memorial Day. And so we just had this happen, and some of you may have seen it on the news. And I decided to go look it up, and it's different for every country. I took a screenshot of what it is in the U.S., which is what all the different number of guns mean. So the number of guns salute depends on how important the person is. So the like former presidents and presidents get 21 gun salutes, heads of state, like other governmental heads, but then you can go down to a vice consul gets 5, right? And so getting 9 when Will says, well, this is more than he even deserved because he's not the actual like leader of the formation like Harcourt is, or that then it's like showing, anyway, that's how this is connected. Okay, so it says, in any case, Timur did not require praising. Any observer looking at him could hardly fail to mark his distinctive and elegant appearance. And I thought this was so cool. First of all, I thought this picture of a dragon was cool, but I thought that it was so cool because earlier we had where people didn't respect him because they had kind of dragon racism, right? Let's see. Yeah, Will, I like Will's insight. Imagine this from the dragon's perspective. You will now have a companion for life, whether you like it or not. And once they die, then you get a replacement. And that is so crazy. A vice consul is like the consular general is someone in charge of a consulate, like the U.S. Consulate, like an embassy. And so it's like an assistant ambassador, basically. Yes, Christine, I agree with you. I felt like the book didn't need any love interest with the humans, but I would have loved it if Temeraire had a love interest. Like, yeah, I would have loved that too. There was nothing, yeah. Anyway, I would have liked that. All right. Grammar goodness, the semicolon. Friends, I want to give Naomi Novik a shout out because this woman can throw down the semicolons. So, love a semicolon. What is a semicolon? Well, you can see it's a period with a comma underneath it or a comma with a period on top. And semicolons do a few things. I think semicolons are so important because they separate out really strong writers from medium writers. So the shape itself, a period with a comma underneath it, is a clue to how strong of a piece of punctuation it is. And when you're deciding whether to use a period or a semicolon, one of the questions you ask yourself is, how long do I want the reader to pause? And that's one of the things that the author is asking. How long do I want my reader to pause? If I don't want them to pause very long, just a half a breath, then a comma. If I want them to pause a full breath, then a semicolon. So grammar goodness, how do we use semicolons? Well, semicolons join two independent clauses without a coordinating conjunction. So that means that both sides of the semicolon have to be a complete independent clause. They would have to be able to stand by themselves as complete sentences. If you put something after the semicolon that is not a complete sentence, then that's not good. Don't do that. But you don't have to use coordinating conjunctions, those fanboys. So you don't have to say and. When you put in the semicolon, you don't have to say and. Now, pro tip, you do not need to start after the semicolon. You don't need a capital letter unless it's a proper noun already, right? Like, unless you said like, all countries in North America are beautiful, semicolon. Canada has the Northern Lights, so, hat tip, right? And so Canada is a proper noun, so you have to put a capital C. And then stronger than a comma, weaker than a period. There you go. So then why use it? Well, it connects independent clauses in a cool way. So you kind of showing off, right? Kind of showing off. You have something against conjunctions. You don't want to use and, for, nor, but, or, yet, so. And you use it with serial lists. I'm going to show you that in a second. And you use it with conjunctive adverbs. I'm going to show you that in a second. So this is what I mean. I'm going to read the next book in the Temeraire series. It's called Throne of Jade. So notice, I don't have to say, and it's called Throne of Jade, right? I just say, it's called Throne of Jade. But I can't do this. I'm going to read the next book in the Temeraire series, Throne of Jade. That would be okay if it were a colon. But if there's a semicolon, I have to have an independent clause. No, don't do this. And then, okay, I want to know, you guys try it here. My favorite food is blank. I eat it, and then tell me like when you eat it or where you eat it or something about how you eat it. I want an adverbial phrase there. So let me see this. Yeah, Deb Cody Michael says using conjunctions to join sentences can be clunky sometimes. It's absolutely true. Canada, Anna. I thought about you when I chose that example. I was like, oh, I'm going to give Anna a little shout out. But you know, I'm like part Canadian too, so represent. All right. I even know the national anthem, but I won't sing it for you because I like you guys. Okay, let's see. My favorite food is ice cream. I eat it always, right? Could this one also use a comma? No, this one can't. I don't know if you're talking about the one before. No, it can't use a comma. A comma is too weak. A comma cannot hold together two independent clauses. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. My favorite food is mushrooms. I ate it as a reward for potty training. That is awesome. That's awesome. Actually, we just saw an episode on a TV show called Blacklist last night on Netflix, where this guy had creepy mushrooms everywhere. So don't watch that episode if you like mushrooms. My favorite food is nachos. I eat it all the time. My favorite food is broccoli. I try to eat it steamed as often as possible. My favorite food is homemade pizza. I eat it at least once a week. My favorite food is pasta. I eat it when I'm tired. My favorite food is sushi. I eat it at the Chinese restaurant, right? Like all of this is so good. My favorite food is mashed potatoes. I eat it with my hands. That's awesome. Blueberries. I eat it with iridescent mousse. That's fantastic. Like, my favorite, I love blueberries too. I just love blueberries. Haha, you can see. Yes, I can see. Let's see. My favorite food is chocolate. I eat it in Guatemala. That's kind of interesting. And Black Jaguar, who's just come, like, Black Jaguar is like the black horse. She, like, came out from nowhere and joining us from Ecuador, which is super cool. Ecuador is a super cool country, home to one of the, isn't Ecuador home to, like, one of the tallest volcanoes in the world? I think so. Depending on how you measure the height of volcanoes, I think it's true. Cheese and bacon quesadillas. Oh, sign us up, Lauren. All right, so avoid the dreaded comma splice error. So the comma splice error is when you, oops, let me go backwards because I thought I was going to have an example. A comma splice error is when you use a comma and you really need a semicolon or a conjunction. So you can't just use a comma to join two independent clauses. If you can't. If you put a comma here instead of a semicolon, if this were a comma, that would be what's called a comma splice. A comma splice is when you have two independent clauses and this poor little weak comma is trying to hold them together, but it just can't. And so it just splices. It's just like you just break the comma because it can't handle it. It's too weak. All right. You can also use the semicolon in serial lists. So I want a book that has all of these things: dragons, wizards, A positives, hashtags, and leeches of despair. But notice that with this, when you use a semicolon in a serial list, you can use and at the very end, or you don't have to. Both of these are equally correct. Yes, new hashtag, the dreaded comma splice error. Yes. And then here's another example. I want cupcakes, pie, cake, candy, gum, potato chips, beef jerky, or I want cupcakes, pie, cake, candy, blah, 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 and beef jerky. You can use the and or don't use the and. The reason that we would use a semicolon instead of just comma after comma is for two reasons. Number one, it just helps the eye of the reader, but also, what if things in your list have a comma in between them or are a phrase rather than just a single word? It just makes it, it's clarity, right? Which is what we're looking for in writing. Okay, so I want to see you try using a serial comma, or I'm sorry, not a serial comma, a semicolon. I want to see your semicolons. Give me a serial list with the semicolons, your favorite books. My favorite books are, and then I want to see the semicolon between them. Okay, let's see. All except beef jerky. I'm going to watch those come in. My favorite foods are blank, semicolon, blank, semicolon, blank, semicolon. Let's see how you do with that. Okay, and I'll watch those come in. And then you can, this is that, when I said with conjunctive adverbs. Conjunctive adverbs are words like moreover, or nevertheless, or here I have however and consequently. You can also have therefore, then, finally, right? And so this works. You can use the semicolon and then that. If you put in a comma instead of the semicolon here, that would be a comma splice error. The dreaded comma splice error. Okay. Favorite food. My favorite books are Percy Jackson, Harry Potter series. Okay, I think Mark, you're kind of cheating because Mark is doing whole series, so he's kind of getting around it. Okay, so if you're going to use these adverb clauses, or these, I'm sorry, if you're going to use these conjunctive adverbs, you've got to have either a coordinating conjunction, which feels awkward, which Deb Coatney, Michael mentioned earlier, or a period, but you cannot use just a comma. All right, you can't do this. I used to read Junie B. Jones, however, now I don't. You can't do that. Comma splice error. Hashtag the dreaded comma splice error. Okay, so now I want to see this. Okay, I'm seeing some nice books coming in here. Wings of Fire. Ooh, nice. All right. I read lots of books. Then I want you to choose one of these conjunctive adverbs and then say something about it. I read lots of books, nevertheless, blank, or I read lots of books, therefore, or I read lots of books, then, or finally, or likewise, or consequently. I want to see something that you, I read lots of books, and then one of these conjunctive adverbs. All right. I'm going to move on pretty quickly, you guys, because there's a lot in today. Like, seriously, we're on slide 51. There's 141 slides in today's deck. It's so crazy. But this chat will be a great place for you guys to find good books. And I may, if they've shown up a lot, I'll go and add them in our little Amazon list. All right, real person alert. They mentioned Admiral Lord Gardner, and he was a real person. This is him, Baron Gardner. And Baron Gardner, he got married and had like 9 or 10 kids, but he was kind of known as dashing. He was thought of as one of those kind of dashing naval heroes in his time. And a real place alert, Cherbourg, which is right here. So we had Brest before out here, and here's Cherbourg. So you can see why Napoleon would be putting stuff here. It's so close to England. All right, whale of a word, solecism. This word comes up when Chenery, when they're with those other officers and they're invited to stay for like a late night, and Chenery is like, oh yeah, I really need to get back to my dragon. And Will says, oh, he committed a solecism. So a solecism is when you commit a faux pas. So it can be with grammar, like if you say grammar that's inappropriate. Like I'll give you an example. A lot of times right now, I've heard this, people say whenever when they really mean when. Like they'll say, whenever I got to school this morning, I blah, 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 blah. No, not whenever you got to school, when you got to school. That would be a solecism. But it can also be in behavior. It can be in manners. And in those, we sometimes would use the word faux pas, right? So in some ways, it's a faux pas. It's like a grammar faux pas or a behavior faux pas. That's a solecism. And it partly explains why the Aerial Corps is seen as odd, right? Is because they have all these behavioral solecisms. And I thought I would show you one. So yeah, this song, Between You and I, that's a solecism because it shouldn't be between you and I. It should be between you and me. Between you and me. And so because of that, this is a solecism. Sorry about that, Jessica. And then he says, when he gamely tried once more, this time Lawrence deliberately volunteered to reply. And I loved this scene because Chenery is trying to talk to them, but now that he's committed the solecism, nobody wants to talk to him, and they're like shunning him almost in the conversation. And Will decides, I'm gonna rescue you, dude. And so he deliberately draws him out. And I just love this scene because it's a reminder to us, like, be like Will, right? Be like Will. If you see somebody like at a gathering or at an event who's feeling awkward or has said something that like offended people and now they're shunning them, you be the person who doesn't leave someone feeling awkward or left out. You be that person. Be the person who tries to fix it. I just really like that. Okay, so this is a scene where Lenton, who's like the commander of the base where they are guarding the channel, He's like, well, if he does choose to send Excidium and his formation away, then the channel is vulnerable to aerial attack. But if the French and Spanish fleet escape Cadiz, an advantage would be enough for Napoleon to ferry over his invasion. And this is a perfect example of an often misused word, which is this: a dilemma, a choice between two bad choices. A lot of times people will say, oh, I have a dilemma. Should I eat the chocolate chip ice cream or the mint chocolate chip ice cream? Friends, that's not a dilemma. That's a beautiful thing. A dilemma, really, the true meaning of a dilemma is a choice between two bad choices, two poor choices. That's a dilemma. The frying pan or the fire, right? That's a dilemma. And that's what we've got going on right here.
Is that how you spell dilemma?
I think so.
That was M-N-A.
Oh, maybe. Then I would have a nice English teacher fail. Mr. Vanstar is asking a question. Okay, so dilemma, choosing between. So I want an example of a dilemma. Two hard choices. What's two hard choices? Choosing between what? What would be a dilemma that you could think of? Having to choose between what and what? Two bad choices. All right. I'm just loving this. That was a lot of participation from you guys, and good job. So we're going to go to chapter 11. Oh, okay. So in chapter 11, Lawrence asks this question. So this is like they're sleeping, and he's sleeping next to Temeraire, and he feels Temeraire restless, and he's like, oh, is something the matter? And I put this picture of the roller coaster, and because I think that question, like, it sounds like an innocuous question, right? Is something the matter? And then all of a sudden it's like, because the rest of the story, we're just on this crazy roller coaster from now on. Okay. Oh, you guys are coming up with some really good dilemmas. The choosing between getting eaten by a shark or falling off a 300-foot cliff. Choosing between death and life in prison. Ooh, 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 ooh. Deb Coatney, nice allusion to the bet there. And then, oh, okay, some of you have some really, really dark dilemmas. But Laura, cleaning my room or the bathroom. Yeah, I mean, like, the bathroom is yuckier, but it's less stuff. So, yeah, interesting. All right, so he asks, is something the matter? And now we... And until now, I think, I don't know if you guys agree with me, but until now, I feel like the novel's been moving at a pretty slow pace. Like, it's definitely not a strongly plot-driven novel. Up to this point, there have been plot points, of course, there always are, but here it becomes primarily plot-driven. That the character takes a back seat and the plot moves forward. I'm curious about whether you guys agree with me on that. And then Harcourt says, he means to do Lily a mischief. And I'm like, is that what you call it? Like, I think that's, yeah. So he's got a knife to her throat and he's planning to steal Lily by threatening Catherine. And it's so terrible because before we saw Lawrence show some concern, we saw Will show some concern that that there was like kind of a romance brewing between Choiseul and Harcourt. And now that seems like, who cares about that? This is what we should have been worried about. This is so much worse. And when Will asks Choiseul, like, why? Like, why are you doing this? And he said his price wasn't Catherine's dragon, right? The price of Napoleon to give him a pardon so that he wouldn't be executed. Will thought it was to get Lily. But Choiseul says his price wasn't Catherine's dragon, but yours. The Chinese egg was sent as a gift to him from the imperial throne. And we find out it's like from one emperor to another, that it was sent after Napoleon had himself declared an emperor. And he says, I thought perhaps if I killed him, and you see this M dash, that long hyphen is called an M dash, E-M. And so the... I thought perhaps if I killed him, and then we have this M dash because now there's no talking, there's action because bam, Will just attacks him. And we saw how Will got him subdued before, but this is different. This is like Will unleashed. because he's like even alluding to the fact that he wanted to kill Temeraire, and Lawrence goes nuts. It says that he struck him full across the face with such force as to knock him onto the stone floors of the cell. And I was like, "Wah!" Right? Oh, William, like Hermione choosing between death and expulsion. Yes, yes. That's awesome. So dilemmas can be different for different people. It was a sword. You're right. It was a sword. Now, it probably wasn't a bubble sword, though. I don't think that even Will Lawrence has a bubble sword. But you're right. It's a sword. All right. So I want to know, do you guys accept Choiseul's reasoning why he betrayed them? That he said, okay, well, Choiseul is sure that Napoleon's going to win. He doesn't believe that these guys have a chance. He does not think they have a chance at all to win. And so he sees his betrayal as simply a practical matter, right? He doesn't, ooh, you're right, Molly. I should have put that as a friendship alert. He doesn't want his dragon killed. He doesn't see how he could get him to America without a transport. He doesn't have one. His only hope was a pardon by Napoleon. And the only way to do that was to kill Temeraire and kidnap Catherine to get Lily. So are you buying it? So I'm looking at this here. Looking at this to see what you think. Are you buying it? Juliet says, Juliet's the one who sent me the picture of the trees. It was terrible reasoning. And then Anna, I accept his reasoning here. Reminds me of Wormtail. Oh, okay. Okay, I see that. Not courageous. Oh, I like that, Anna. That yeah, you could accept that reasoning. You could believe everything he's saying and it's still not courage. I like that. So I'm loving seeing your reasoning come in here. And then Will asks this question. Does Napoleon have some means for his fleet to escape Cadiz? And this is a picture of the city of Cadiz. Napoleon needs to get his men to England, and this has always been an issue for him because that blue in the background, friends, that's not sky. That's water. And there has always been this English Channel in between England and France, been there a long time, and the British Navy is superior, and there's all this pesky water in the way. And so the French have always been thwarted by this. And so this is the whole premise of the novel, right? What if Napoleon could find a way? And then when they find out that the dragon was destined for Napoleon, Temeraire says, I'm sure I never would have liked him in the least, even if I had hatched in French. And so beautiful. Okay, now, divergence. We got a divergence from history here, because when they're telling the story of the Battle of Trafalgar, they say poor Nelson himself came in a hair's breadth of being killed. But in actuality, in real life, Nelson did die at the Battle of Trafalgar. And so that was interesting. So this book is based on the premise, and I think subsequent books in the series, based on the premise that Nelson survives the Battle of Trafalgar, which is a divergence from the history. All right, so one of the ways that authors build suspense is by having characters be overconfident and almost arrogant, right? And so whenever you see characters say something like, well, this could never happen, then there's almost always, you can be assured, is going to happen, right? And so these are some of the quotes that I pulled out that show this. Whatever scheme of invasion Bonaparte has been working towards, this must surely have put paid to it, meaning this must surely have made it not possible, right? Because they defeated that ambush, right? And now his army can't come across, like, and the Battle of Trafalgar, right? Oh, we won the Battle of Trafalgar. Surely that's not going to happen. Now his army can't come across. He wouldn't be so foolish. His hope of invasion is done. When you see an author say something like this over and over and over again, it can't possibly happen. It can't possibly happen. It can't possibly happen. Friends, that is code for it's going to happen. And the entire book, we've mentioned it before, the entire book takes this quote from John Jervis, the first Earl of St. Vincent, who they call Lord St. Vincent. I do not say the French cannot come. I only say they cannot come by sea. And remember what I said, that this guy doesn't have a good biography, if any of you are looking in that. So then And then Temeraire, I would be ashamed because then they're talking about what they're going to do because they're executing Choiseul for his treason. What are they going to do with his dragon? And Temeraire says, I would be ashamed to let my rider be executed and not me too. Oops, English teacher fail, see that typo. If I had done as much, and I would not let anyone execute Lawrence anyway. I should like to see them try. I would love to see this as a movie to see if the voice that I've given to Temeraire in my head is real. I don't know if any of you have a voice of Temeraire in your head. And Temeraire says this bit of dragon wisdom, some of the laws which I have heard make very little sense, and I don't know that I would obey them if it were not to oblige you. And again, dragon wisdom that, yeah, Christine says you should write his biography. I'll put on my list. He does not, Dracon, a warrior, he does not have a good biography. Nobody's done a really good biography of the Earl of St. Vincent, and he was an extraordinary character. Real life, right? Okay, so I want to know, do you think the fate of Precursorus was fair? So they take Choiseul's dragon. I'm sorry for the noise. I'm playing with this bubble sword. I need to set it aside. Do you think the fate of Precursorus was fair? They try to decide what to do. They decide not to execute him. They decide to send him off to Nova Scotia, where he will go into a breeding program. So he will just make more dragons. Curious, do you think it was fair? So there we go. Oh, Anna says she imagines Temeraire having a very proper British voice. You know, my husband and I were talking the other day about, like, when did Americans lose their British accent? Or my husband's Australian. But his ancestors are British mostly. And so, like, when did they stop talking like that and start talking the way that they do now? Kind of interesting. Okay, so I'm starting to get some answers that the fate was fair. And if you don't think it was fair, be sure to say what else could they have done? What do you think they should have done? Because can they really trust him just to get another handler? All right, and then they say, oh, next you will cry out against taxation without representation and throw a basket of tea into the harbor. So it's just this allusion to the American Revolution and the Boston Tea Party, which I am actually reading a book about right now called 1774. That's what I'm reading right now. And 3-2 into the harbor because they only wanted liberty. Get it? Get it? Liberty. Get it? I love it. Cloudfall. Nice insight that Precursorus can't be trusted because he was willing to blindly listen. Interesting. He might have just wanted to be killed too. That's true. That's true. No, they can't trust him. Off to Nova Scotia. I don't think they should have made the dragon watch. Oh, I don't think they made him, like, I think that he wouldn't leave. Oh, Elizabeth says that the voice of Temeraire was horrible, like a peculiarly finicky little old man. I would have hated that. I would have hated that. Oh, you guys have such great reasoning about Precursorus. You guys, you're thinking it's next level. All right, chapter 12. Nova Scotia. They're gonna send Precursorus to Nova Scotia. And this is one of those things where Novik rewards the careful reader. So Nova Scotia is in Canada. It's in far eastern Canada. It's an island. And even though it's very close to Quebec, which is French speaking, almost everybody who lives in Nova Scotia is English speaking. Nova Scotia is Latin for New Scotland. And in fact, if you live in Quebec and you want to say Nova Scotia, what you say is Nouvelle-Écosse, which is New Scotland. So think about it. Think how clever that is. Because where were the dragons training? They were training in Lochelagan in Scotland. And so now they're doing this breeding program in Nova Scotia in New Scotland. So the new dragons come from New Scotland. Simon says he's been in Nova Scotia a lot. It's awesome. No, France does not own Nova Scotia. Now it's part of Canada. But it's, if you've read Anne of Green Gables, set there, beautiful. Halifax is the capital. All right, so then Rankin's redemption, or at least attempted redemption, that he has gone on this mission and he's been a spy and he's gained them some really clever intelligence. And It says he's returned. He was able to slip past their borders. He's got a wound in his thigh. And yeah, okay. I think that, okay, that's nice that you did that. Whoops. That's nice that you did that. But this is how I feel. How do you feel? Oh, how do I know Deb Coatney's name? Because now Deb Coatney and I go way, 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 way back. And lots of writing, and he's been in the chat and emails and all that. All right, so this is how I feel. It's just too little too late. It's just too little too late for me. Rankin, too little too late. I'm not buying it. Don't like it. Yeah, so that whole area of Canada has gone back and forth from British, French. It's been controlled by lots of people. You're right. Okay, I don't think Rankin redeems himself. Convince me otherwise. Anybody who believes it. Okay, his redemption as a war hero, not an aviator. Maybe. Well, I don't know. Draco Moira, he lets Levitus die. I don't know that he could have prevented it. I mean, he got wounded when they did that. Oh, he is not redeemed. Okay. So curious. I don't think he redeems himself. If anybody says he does, I'll be interested to see that. And then it says that Napoleon meant to fly his troops over the Navy's guns entirely, while so many of Britain's aerial forces were occupied. And so now what we've got is the crux of it. Why their overconfidence was such a problem. Napoleon never intended to cross through the channel by sea. He intended to cross by land. Yeah, I agree with Cloudfall. I think he would have redeemed himself better if he had died. Like, that would have been better. Okay, so then Lauren starts doing all this math, right? Like, okay, well, how big were they? How many ships were they? And he starts doing all these Navy man calculations. And he figures out how many people those things could hold. And, I think everyone else is like standing around going, gee, I wonder how many people that could be. And Lawrence's experience in the Navy means he can figure it out, even if it's not funny. He's like, oh, let's see, 2,000, 3,000, 42 million times 2 divided by 4 equals, oh, that'll be about 50,000 people in just a few hours. Right? And everybody's like, right? It's so bad. Like, we find out that the whole battle that everybody thought was the Battle of Trafalgar, they think it's the battle, but instead it is just a decoy. And, oh, that's bad. All right. And then we have, oh, that's funny. Gifted Guru. That was very clever. I see what you did there, Mark C. Okay, then we get this whale of a word. Now, you can pronounce this 2 ways. You can pronounce it the French way, which would be accoutrements, or you can pronounce it the anglicized way, which would be accoutrements. Everything sounds better in French. I need a t-shirt that says that. Everything sounds better in French. So accoutrements are like the little extras. It's a fancy French word that we've hijacked. It means something a little different if you mean it literally in French. In French, it's more like a costume or a get-up. Like, what are you doing in, like, why are you dressed so weirdly, right? Like, we could have used that in Cask of Amontillado when they come out dressed like the Harlequin thing. But we have accoutrements are when you have like the little extras, like you have a desk, but then you have all these office supplies, or you have a Barbie and you get all the clothes and the Barbie dream boat and the Barbie dream house and all of that. Those are accoutrements. Why all the extra letters? Because French is just cool like that. Like, you have a sentence like that sounds super long. It takes 35 seconds just to say one word, but yeah, it's awesome. Okay, I love this part. This is when Levitus is dying and Will goes up to Rankin and he preaches straight fire. He's like, you will be generous to him. Do you understand me? You will give him every word of praise he has earned from you and never received. You will tell him he has been brave and loyal and a better partner than you have deserved. And it's like straight fire. German is better. Okay, so my German is way better than my French, But whereas in French, every word sounds beautiful. In German, every word sounds like another, it's harsh. German is much more harsh than French, although I do love German. Ich liebe Deutsch. All right. So I just love this. It's like straight fire, straight fire. Oh, Tina, that's a cute t-shirt. I just love this part. I love this part. And then this is what he says. You have been very brave. That's all he's got. That's all he's got. Ah! And again, I'm like, yeah, no. Too little, too late. Okay, and I want to suggest renaming Will Lawrence Defensor Draconis, Defender of Dragons. What do you guys think? Oh, I have a dragon. Okay, this is my other dragon puppet. I already had it. I bought Cygnus just for this class, but this is a 3-headed dragon I've had for a really long time. And my 3-headed dragon, right? And I just think I needed to bring him out here to see what you think about naming Will the Defensor Draconis, Defender of Dragons. Do you know what puppet I also had that I wanted to use and I never got to? Was this one. My pirate puppet. Well, we didn't have any pirates. I wanted some pirate. I kept thinking we were going to get pirates. Arr, right? And now we're at the end of the story and there's been no pirates. Okay. So, okay. Oh, yes. Some of you like that. Yes. Okay. Then Holland gets a dragon. And isn't that so sweet? Aren't you like, oh, Holland gets a dragon. Holland gets a dragon. Yes, Cygnus is better. I agree with you. Yeah, none of the dragons in the story have more than one head. That's why I had to get it. Another puppet, because I didn't have a single-headed dragon puppet, and I must have it. Right, where's Cygnus? Hi, here's Cygnus. I saw someone comment on how his tongue's always sticking out. That's because he's breathing straight fire, people. I could pull it in, I guess, but the tongue moves around. You like that? Tongue moves around, and yeah, it's pretty cool. It moves pretty good. Cygnus. All right. The French dragons seemed like a cloud of gulls or sparrows, so many were they, and wheeling so in unison. It was a different thing to see those numbers made flesh and whole. Like far away, they look really small, and then we're like, ah. And then they're realized, and it's so funny because Will's like, he says to Granby, wow, the logistics of feeding so many dragons together must be impractical for any extended period. He won't be able to try this again soon. And Granby is like, what are you talking about, dude? The future? We're not going to be here to see the future. There is no future. Because they're not just outnumbered. They're outsized, outweighed. Like, yeah, it's crazy. I thought that was a funny one. All right. Warning. Very exciting battle action sequence ahead. And it was amazing. I thought this scene was great. Did you guys like this scene? I love this scene. All right, nothing could have been more unpleasant than to watch his men make that terrifying unharnessed leap into the waiting enemy's hands while he himself had to remain at his station. And that was when they boarded the other dragon. And then life lesson, even an enemy can be a hero. And that was the scene when Lily struck that French dragon in the face and the captain of the French dragon climbed out onto the dragon's neck and shot the dragon in the head so that it wouldn't die by being eaten to the bone by acid, even knowing that it meant that he himself was going to die. I just love that. Compare that to Rankin's behavior, right? Compare that guy to Rankin. In life, you have to be willing to acknowledge that no one is all good or all bad. If there's someone who you don't like and so you immediately just judge all of their actions as bad because you don't like them, you're flawed in your thinking. You're way too shallow in your thinking. Things are much more nuanced than that. And there was so much strategy. Remember how I said last class that I had said we're going to look through the prism of friendship, luck, and strategy? And there had really been luck and there had been friendship, but there hadn't been much of this. And boom, so much strategy. And then Temeraire says, Lawrence, we cannot cede, can we? And we must still try, or we would be leaving our friends to fight without us. And he finally comes to an understanding of duty. And then I love these progressives. He can feel the air moving beneath, echoing, resonating in the chambers of Temeraire's lungs. Got to give it to those progressives. That ing gives such a feeling. We saw that in the short story Muffin. We saw that power of the progressive there. Temeraire opened his jaws, and what emerged was a roar that was less sound than force. A terrible wave of noise so vast it seemed to distort the air before him. And finally, I get to use my thunder tube. Yes, that's what happens. And he says, Lawrence, I think I did that. So awesome. Okay, epilogue. End of the story. Now they're popular, right? This is how it is, right? Oh, now the aviators are popular. Now that they did the, anyway, people are so fickle. All right. I love this scene. The musicians have been set at the very edge of the pavilion where the dragons could gather outside to listen. I just love that scene. And then calling it divine wind freaked me out a little bit because the divine wind is in Japanese kamikaze. And I thought that was a weird thing to call it because Japanese, it was the divine wind that they felt like saved them from Kublai Khan and the Mongol invasion. But it's what they called the pilots, the suicide pilots, who attacked Allied warships during World War II. And I just think it's like, I thought that was a weird choice. I don't think I would have done that. And then we get this, we may have the Chinese on our necks over it. This is when Edward Howe is like, oh yeah, if they know that we have a celestial, then they're going to be all over us. And I'm like, oh, let me guess what's in book 2, right? Foreshadowing. I do not care if Lawrence is not an emperor. We defeated Napoleon in battle and made him fly away, even though he is one. Yes. And I love this. This is the end of the book. In his heart, he shared the simplicity of Temurer's view of the matter, and he fell asleep almost at once in the security of the slow, deep rushing of Temurer's heartbeat, so very much like the endless sound of the sea. And I was like, yay! Go Temurer! Like, it was so cool. I love the ending. I love it. And so we're at the end of the story. And just think how in the last month, we've gone from learning about Napoleon. What do you do when you've only got 51 years to live? We've had an introduction. We've met all these people, some real, some fake. And just that moment, it is a dragon's egg then? I mean, it's like, it seems like so long ago. And we've just been caught up in this friendship. And then we've got Serignet. Like, it's hard to say goodbye to these books when they're done. It's like, goodbye, Temeraire. Goodbye, Will. Like, goodbye, everyone. It's so sad. I feel like this. I feel like this scene from Pete's Dragon again. And this scene, I went through all the friendship quotes, and this was the one that really stuck out to me. For you are worth far more than all of them. I just love that. I just love that. Okay, so that's the end of the story. And what I need to do now is interest you in your challenge. So at the end of every class, I would ask you, are you interested in reading any of the other books in the series? And many of you already have. And that's so cool. And that is so cool. So if you are interested in that, if you are not interested in that, then my suggestion would be try a new genre. Try a genre you don't normally read, or try a different length. Read a book that's either longer or shorter than you're used to, or reread something you've read before, looking at it through a different lens. Just like we've read books looking for something in particular, like with Sam, can you really run away? And how do you become self-reliant? And in this book, luck, friendship, strategy. Reread something looking for that. And then tell me about it. I made a Google spreadsheet where you can put in what you're reading and whether you recommend it or not. And that way others can go in and find some book ideas, so you can bookmark that and come back to it. You can also message me on Facebook or tag me on Twitter and show me what you're reading. I would love to see it. This is what that looks like, where you get to say what you're reading, and there's a drop-down menu for what genre and whether you recommend it or not. So I just can't end this class without saying, like, this is our last one, guys. This is it. And it's been amazing. And so I just want to take a few minutes and look back over what we've got, what we've had happen, and the time that we've spent together. And I hope I don't cry. All right. So it started like this, right? I didn't know if anybody was going to come up. I was going to show up, right? I started I got the idea on a Saturday morning early and started on Monday and didn't know if anybody was going to be there. This is how it looked with my computers all set up, and I didn't know what was going to happen. And then it took off, and we ended up getting to be kind of famous and on the front page of the Dallas Morning News, which was amazing. And there, Mr. Vanstar getting there was a huge article. This is page 4 of the paper, and this is a big paper. It was amazing. And do you remember this? This is the very first, right? And then look, you can see some of yourselves in there. I think you can see some of your names. That was so cool. And ready to dive in. I just wanted to show you some of these things where we got this. So do you remember this? Like when it was starting, and then the hashtags began. And Mr. Vanstar went and found our very first hashtag, which was by somebody who's no longer doing the classes. And it was First World Problemo. And it was talking about in the necklace, when she's working to pay off this necklace, that it was a first world problem. And so the hashtags began. So he also went and found people who have been here from the beginning. So a lot of you have been here since almost the beginning, but these were the ones that we could find that had been here from the very beginning. And then Clara making herself known today, but has been here. So these are names that you probably are all familiar with. And there are more, obviously, many of you. But these guys, man, you're something. Remember all that writing? Remember all the writing? And then all the ranking. Do you see some of your names? There's Jay Sand in there. Some of these names I see, we don't see anymore. And there's Simon. And then you guys, I loved what you said. I loved reading these things that you said about the class. And you were so I love this list that Simon refers to and Dracon Warrior talked about, which was like all the different things. The Sweet 16 was so fun. And Cloudfall, you guys, these meant so much to me reading them. If you didn't get a chance to add yours in of what you've learned and what you've loved, please go in and add it. I've read them all over and over again. I've read them all multiple times. And what I hope, oh, you know what? I'm going to interrupt myself for just a second. Hey, Steve, can you come over? They want to just come poke your head over here so they can see. Somebody asked for Mr. Van Reveal, so I asked him to come over. Here's Mr. Vanstar and helping me out with his little coronavirus.
Yeah, I need to share
His great face. So there's a real live sighting there. So my hope is that when people ask you later who your English teachers were, I hope you will include me in the list, because I know that when people ask me what the favorite class I ever taught was, I know that I will say it was you. And then shout out to the keeper of the hashtags. These are the hashtags. She gave me a list. And I would like to end with one last whale of a word. This was a whale of a word that started this book, that she dedicated the book to her husband and said sine qua non, which we learned means without which not. And that's how I feel about you, that this class could not have been, it wouldn't have been anything without you. You are a true treasure to me, and I will miss you very, very, very much. So as hard as it is, it is time to say goodbye. And it is so cool, though. I hope you'll think about all the stories we've read, and all the recordings are up there, so you can go back and scroll through, look at the live chat. And I'll go back to the very first slide, the very first one, very first class. meet the genre, right? And so, one last time. This is Mrs. Van signing off.